Hello, I'm Will, producer at Strange Loop Games.
I'm Craig, a programmer and designer.
Today we're going to be talking about the skill system. We've got a new skill system coming in 8.0 that Craig's been working on.
Yep.
So Craig's going to be telling us all about that. Craig, before we go into the new system, could you sort of tell us about the old system, what the vision for it was, and how it works so we can get into what's new?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm sure a lot of people have already played a ton of Eco, so you kind of know how the skill system works, but I'm going to highlight a little bit about it before we go forward, just so you kind of know where we're coming from and like what we wanted out of the original system. So, pretty much the original skill system of Eco was created because we wanted people to be able to contribute equally despite having differences in playtime. So like, say for instance, Will and I are in a game together and Will has to work his like long job and he has only like the evenings to play, and for whatever reason I can just play all day every day and I can just log whatever, like 10 hours a day on eco mining all day. We wanted those two people to be able to like play together in the same system, in like the same game, without one player falling like horribly behind or like just not being able to contribute at all. So the way we decided to do that is to sort of gate it on time. So that's where the skill points per day system comes from that everybody knows. You get those points from eating, from having a nice house. We tie them into like these other game systems to sort of encourage people to use those. And it, there's some good things and some bad things about that system. It did sort of have that effect we were sort of looking for in that, if there was that disparity in time played, you could still sort of contribute. But of course, if you can't log on all the time, there's still like some issues there. And really like the main problem that we saw with it is that like in the end, the skills that we had within each tree were fairly linear. Like even before we had them in the specializations that they're in now, you would have these like efficiency skills and the speed skills, and within each specialization, they're pretty much the same. And people didn't really want to log in and play until their efficiency had reached the maximum potential. And the only way to do that was to just wait, like log out, not play. And that was kind of a really big problem because even though we are trying to encourage people who can't play as much to play, we still want people to play the game. And we want them to enjoy the game. And it's not super fun to like log in and be like, oh, here, I'm going to like queue some logs. And then you're like, oh, but if I just log out and do it tomorrow, I'll be able to do it so much better. And like that's not really the sort of feeling we wanted to convey, although. So that's one of the major issues we wanted to address with the new system. The other one was just like, on one hand, we wanted to make it simpler because you would, or at least like make these points feel more meaningful, right? Because now currently you gain like, I get like 50 skill points a day, and you log on and you have 50 skill points, but really like 50 skill points, you're just putting them into these sort of incremental skills that just don't seem to be that meaningful. Like each individual point has no meaning to you. So we're trying to sort of make them feel better.
And I think there is an issue with people wanting to be able to test out different professions beyond just what they were specialized in.
Oh yeah, so like a while back we've been toying around a lot with how much we want to lock down specialties into their individual like niches. So like really early on, right, we had so everyone could kind of just like take skills and they could kind of do whatever they wanted, and then we sort of like later on locked that down into the specialization system, which is where it is in 7, where you need to take the specialization to be able to do it. This also has problems with the whole time gating thing, right? Because you like unlock lumber by like researching it, but you can't actually learn it because you don't have the skill points, so you can't actually do anything with it. So with the new skill system, we've sort of opened it up a little bit more so that if you do progress, you can sort of keep progressing, although it's more difficult now. But at least it's not impossible.
So
and you can also, like, if you're a miner, you can still do a little bit of farming if you want, but you definitely won't be nearly as good as somebody who like decided to be a farmer and they've invested time into that.
Right.
Yeah.
So before we jump into the showing off the new skill system, what did we want to keep from the old system?
Yeah, so I guess pretty much the main thing we wanted to keep is kind of what I touched on earlier, which is really that the whole thing where like if you can't play as much, you should still be able to contribute. And I think that's one of the main things, and as you'll notice when we go into it, that we still have like the time-based gain sort of, but we've also offset that with reasons to play. The other thing we wanted to keep was the tie-ins to housing and nutrition, which we think are pretty important to like just the other systems of the game, like getting variety of food and like building your house and making it nice, all those sorts of things. We really needed to keep that sort of intertwined with the skill system still. I think those are the two major things that we wanted to keep. And in general, like efficiency and speed are still there. They're just not something you pour points into anymore. So mostly like as opposed to like a complete like overhaul of like the inner workings, we've really kind of like changed how you interact with it.
Great. Well, let's jump into the game and show off how the new skill system works.
Yeah, sure. All right. So, essentially, the new skill system, basically this new skill system comes with a new UI. And I guess I should touch on how you gain them. So, as with before, it's split into like categories, which we're calling professions. So these would be these ones, which would be like mason, carpenter, chef, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then within those, there are the specialties, which, so for mason, it's like mining, mortaring, bricklaying, cement, those things. Mm-hmm. So the structure is still pretty much the same. And now when you take these specializations, which are the subcategories, so like you could be a mining specialist or a mortaring specialist. In some ways, this is exactly the same as 7. Mm-hmm. There's no, in terms of like how they're organized, it's pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm. So the organization will be familiar for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. The main difference now is that instead of skill points, you gain levels. Like your character will like level up, is what we're calling it, and you'll gain these stars. And these stars are used to gain specialties. So now that's 1 for 1. You don't need to be like, oh, I have like 500 skill points. I wonder how many, if I can get a new specialty yet. You'll just know. You'll either be able to take a specialty or you won't. Mm-hmm. So for each level you gain, you will get an additional specialty. So at least for me, I think I have, so I have 2 specialties available. I already picked some, but that's based on my level. And so that's kind of where the whole, one part of the old skill points per day, as it were, tie-in comes into, mm-hmm. is now my nutrition and housing, although I just have 40 here and no house. That comes into how fast you gain experience. And this will become more important later when we talk about how the specialties work. But one of the ways that this experience multiplier works is by increasing the time it takes to get these specialties. So that's, in actuality, it's basically the same as it was in 7. It's just easier to tell, and you don't need to assign points into the specialties. You kind of just get this bar that would be how much it takes to get to your next specialty, and once it fills up, you can take another specialty. So, and for any of these specialties, you can just gain them by assigning this point. And if you want to gain a new specialty, or like the ones that are hidden, because mm-hmm. research still exists, you need to research them. So like, say I wanted to be whatever bricklaying person, mm-hmm. I can't because it's undiscovered, so I'd have to do a research table. And these will update. I'll show that real quick. Let's see. So I got a research table here. And I guess I'll research basic engineering.
Okay.
I'll put some of these logs in it. Let's see. Engineer. So yeah, so see, look, it shows it's partially researched. It says it's currently being researched, and it shows a bar. This is something that was in the old UI. It's also in the new UI. And so you still need to research and read these scrolls. So you need to find them. You can trade them, whatnot. That whole system hasn't been changed. And then, so once you've read the scrolls, I'll just use some of these default ones. You can learn the skill.
Okay. So here we're going to be learning.
We're going to be learning masonry. Let's actually learn hewing. I think that's better.
All right. That's what I did.
Okay, so we're going to hewing, and it will just confirm. So when I use this star, I'll only have 2 left. And so as soon as you take any specialty, you'll gain pretty large bonuses to your specialty.
50%, right?
Yeah, this is right off the bat, 50%. So as soon as I take this, I gain 50%. So if you're in the game and you haven't taken the specialty, it'll take you twice as much resources to do anything I could do. And I just took this skill. That's the only thing I had to do was click this star, and now I have 50%, mm-hmm. which is it's very significant. And it scales now between 50 and 80. which is
so
sort of the upper bound is the same as it was before because it used to go from 0 to 80 based on how many skill points you put into your efficiency skill, but now it just starts you off with 50% speed and 50% efficiency.
And how do you get to level 7?
So once you've taken a skill, you can do pretty much any action that you would normally associate with it. So for hewing specifically, it's to hew logs or make anything really that requires hewing, which is a lot of stuff on the carpentry table. So now that have hewing, let's make some boards. I like boards. Let's make 3. So it's only 6 logs.
So the speed at which you're able to make the logs, it's
Yeah,
faster,
so everything's faster now that I have the skill.
and it takes less logs to do so.
Takes less logs. So if you had instead with your 0 hewing skill had decided to build this, you would get that. Okay, so after hewing this log, I have the EXP rates turned way up, but after hewing that log, I'll gain experience. And so you just saw me level up the hewing skill. So as these work orders complete, I'll gain experience. You can see the experience in the bottom left as I gain it. And you see it's times by 40 because 40 is my nutrition.
Okay.
So if I had better nutrition or like a really nice house, I would be gaining this experience faster. And the later specialties have a higher like EXP requirement. So if you want to be like oil refining person, you would then need more experience to level up. So you would want a better house. And so this is sort of in the same way that previously we had used skill points as sort of an encouragement to like make a better house, to have a better diet, those sorts of things. We're now using that to encourage you to get those to level up faster. So
so I noticed it said plus 15. So where can you track that progress?
Yeah, so that's all in your skills menu. So like under carpentry, I can now go into hewing, and like I said, skill rates like way up on the server. But so after crafting that, I've gained a ton of experience, and I've now gone up levels. So now my stuff will be 65% efficiency, 65% faster, and pretty much as this is the only way to gain this experience is by doing actions associated with it. So the only way for me to get from level 1 to level 7 is to craft anything related to the hewing specialty.
Makes sense. To be a great hewer, you got to use it.
Yeah, exactly. So
no more waiting overnight for you to just magically be better.
So now the only thing you're waiting for are these specialties, and once you have the specialty, getting it to the maximum potential is on you. You really have to do whatever action is associated with it. I already have logging, but if I wanted to level up my logging, I'd have to go cut down trees, and that would improve. So let's see. I already max level miner, but so yeah, let's talk about talents because I like talents.
Great. So
the other addition to this skill tree, because it's not just leveling up to get better, although you do that. We've added talents, and these talent choices happen currently at 2 different points, at level 3 and level 6. And as you're improving, you'll be able to unlock these choices. So as it says, this is when you reach this level, you'll get to select a talent. And the talents, at least for all the crafting specialties, right now are kind of the same, but a lot of the gathering ones have pretty unique ones. So I'm going to go select these, and right now their icons are missing. But
so we have Lucky Break, mining.
So they're different for the gathering professions, and so like this one will allow me to pick up a bunch of rocks at once, and this one will, if you've ever mined in the game, you know that sometimes when you hit a rock, you'll get a large chunk, and it's annoying, and it's done like that on purpose. So this will make it so that I won't get those anymore. So I'm actually not going to take this talent right now. I'm going to go hit some rocks.
All right, we'll see the before and after.
Yeah, we'll see the before and after.
Yeah, so everybody has a lot of experience going through this. Yeah. They hit that big rock that needs to be hit again.
Okay, so here's one right here. So this rock, I can't pick it up. I have to break it. And nobody likes using extra calories to break the rocks. So as a master of mining, I will take this one. And this will make it so that I won't get any more. Unless I do, in which case.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, so this...
Nice blocks you can pick up every time.
Yeah. So this should help people... I mean, and obviously there's the option, right? Because if I take the other one, I could just, instead of having to walk around and pick each one up, I could just press it once, and then these would all just get sucked into my inventory.
That's a tough choice.
Yeah, so hopefully these talents will make leveling up a little bit more interesting. You'll have options at different levels to get different things. And they all have them. Some of them are more interesting than others. And just as you go up, you'll unlock these interesting things.
What are the talents for hewing?
So the talents for the craftings are actually currently all pretty much the same. This one doubles the speed of tables when they're by themselves, and the other one makes them faster when they're with tables of a similar type. And really the goals of these talents are to kind of change the way you would build or like enhance the way you would want to build. So like if you want to have like a giant factory with like a dozen sawmills next to each other, then there's a talent for that. If you want to just kind of like live in a small hut, then there's also a talent for that. And really we're going to try and hopefully encourage just different styles of play so that people can kind of enhance the way they play or just try out different things, encourage people to play differently.
Great. Anything else in the current system that you want to talk about before we talk about future plans?
Let's see.
Okay.
So yeah, those are like really the main points of the skill system.
Great. So it looks like we weren't getting all the chat comments to our restream, so I just pulled open the Twitch.
Okay.
I'll be checking through comments and we'll be answering some questions as we go, and also have time at the end for more Q&A.
Oh yeah. So along with the 50%, so kind of touching on this thing where you gain 50% immediately, this also means that like a lot of the recipes are, you don't need to have the specialty to craft them. So like I'm not a mason, I don't know mortaring, but I have read the skill scroll. And so reading the skill scroll gets you to what we're calling level 0. So for instance, in bricklaying, I'm not level 0. I don't have this. I can't learn it, and it's undiscovered. So I can't craft any bricklaying things. So if I can.
So I'll just to reiterate, if you already asked a question, I guess we missed it. So ask again in the Twitch, and we'll be able to catch it now.
So as you can see in here, I don't have mortaring, right? I don't have the skill. It's not skilled. But I do know of it. I have level 0 mortaring.
Mm-hmm.
So with that level 0 mortaring, I'm allowed to craft a lot of these things. There's some stuff I can't craft, but a lot of the recipes are now unlocked. So but their prices are very high. So like if I want to make a stone sign, it's going to cost me 60 stone, right? But if you took masonry, you would be able to craft one for 30 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So this sort of allows people to test out stuff that they haven't taken yet.
Mm-hmm.
And also if like, you know, we've all experienced it, somebody goes missing or something, you like lose your lumber maker, but you need that last 5 lumber to make your research table to like research the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can still get that done without having to like panic, basically.
Right.
Just you'll use a lot more wood.
Or maybe you just are resource rich and you find you have your common skills and professions that you go down, and you never branch out and you say, I want to try to make this. I want to mess around with this. Yeah, and
it'll let you try a bunch of different stuff. Hopefully, the hope is that the economy will sort of like balance this out so that like even though I can make this sign at 60 stone, right, you can make it at 30 or less, because obviously if you get better at it, you'll be able to make it for like 10. And then you'll make this and you'll sell it to me for like 20. And I'll be like, well, I could make this for 60 stone, or I could just buy it from Will for 20. And that choice seems pretty obvious. So that's sort of the hope with unlocking this, because previously we've had them pretty locked down. And that was to really encourage people to like, you know, cooperate and not necessarily work together, but like use the economy systems and do that sort of stuff. Hopefully that will still exist. Obviously we're testing out this new system to see how it works out. And some of the professions are a little bit more locked down than others.
Okay, so we had a specific question. Do you still need the profession to craft trucks, or can you craft without?
Yeah, so certain recipes still require skill, and certain ones do not. I don't have an exact list of which ones do and which ones do not, but there are recipes that are locked behind levels. So especially currently in the current build of the game, cooking is very locked. Not like you can still cook stuff without the skill, but taking the skill and leveling it up unlocks a lot of extra recipes. And then there's some that are less locked down, like early masonry is not as locked down, but there are still a few things that you unlock through levels and stuff like that. So we're kind of testing out a range of stuff, and hopefully we'll figure out what works best and like move all of them in that direction.
Cool. Is calorie waste at the lower cooking efficiency level seen as any kind of problem? Currently, it doesn't make much sense to cook recipes anything less than full efficiency.
So, I'm not sure if that question is about like the fact that you like take like 5 beets and turn it into like one baked beet, and then that one baked beet is worth less calories than those 5 beets individually. That's something that the sort of trade-off there is that we're really trying to make sure that nutrition is important, so that you want to take those 5 beets and turn them into that one beet, because that one beet will give you more skill points. We've done a lot of tweaks with like moving how much skill points things give you. And previously that was kind of hard to tweak just because of the number, like the large numbers you would get. Like, you know, you don't want to get, like, we could give people like 600 skill points a day, and then we could extend the food recipes we have to be from 1 to 600, but that sort of number inflation we were trying to avoid. So right now the range that they're in is sort of low, so people don't really see that incremental like advantage as beneficial. So they're like, oh, I could eat these 5 beets and gain like 20 skill points a day, or I could eat this one really nice beet and get like 25, and that doesn't seem that great. Hopefully this sort of multiplier will make it feel better. Obviously food tweaking is something we're doing all the time. As far as the efficiency goes and like waiting till you get to the end, that's not really possible anymore, because you have to cook things to get to the maximum efficiency. So either way, at this point, you're gonna have to bake a bunch of beets down into one beet.
So let's see. Chojin, are the professions now feeling more identificational, or can you still choose different specialties amongst different professions? Example, skill cement, furniture clothes, and advanced campfire cooking.
Yeah, so the professions right now are just logical groups for the UI. So like there's no benefit. We'll talk about a little bit about the plans for that, but yeah, at least in 8.0, they're not going to be related, but we do have some. I mean, there is some interest in changing that to make them sort of like, oh, like the mason might be better at all the trees in masonry, rather than it just being like, oh, now I'm a bricklayer today, and tomorrow I'm going to like sew clothes, and then after I'm going to cook a nice meal. Like we would like to steer people towards that, but that is not currently in the game.
Cool. Dr. Jones, hey Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones has been streaming a preview of 8.0 recently, so hey, and you should check out their stream. Dr. Jones asked, what time frame are you thinking of for someone to go from unlocking a skill tree to fully maximizing it out? In the beta so far, it seems you burn through them very quickly. I'm guessing you're still balancing that. Yeah,
the EXP balancing is something we need to work on, and it'll change a lot between now and when we release. Not really exactly sure how long we want people to have to level them up, because we do want to allow people to level them up fairly quickly, because you should be getting them relatively fast. Like I know on the one server that we have, the 8.0 server that's up right now, the stream one, they changed the specialty gain rate to be lower than normal. So normally the plan is that each person, assuming that you have a house and a food according to your technology level, will gain, at least for the first like week or so, will gain a specialty every 1 to 2 days. So like today, like if we just started this game and everything was default, I would have 1 specialty point and I would use it on like logging, and then the next day I would have 1 more and I would use it on whatever, like smithing or something. And then 2 days after that I would get another one. And so the goal would be that you could kind of like level these skills up, and especially because of the way that their relevancy works, like near the end of the game there's a lot less reasons to be hewing logs. We kind of need them to level up sort of fast so that they're still like useful at max efficiency. You don't want it to be like, oh yeah, I can finally hew my logs at max efficiency, time to hew my logs, and then your neighbor's building like a concrete monolith. Like that's not really where you want to be. You want to be able to like use your skill at max efficiency as well. So we want it to be relatively fast. The exception to this are sort of the harvesting professions, like mining, logging, gathering, and like those ones level slower, and that's kind of intentional because they're useful for most of the game, and eventually they don't currently tie into the vehicles, but we do want to tie them into the vehicle harvesting as well. Those ones will level slowly because they're relevant throughout the entire game.
Yeah, they're the resources that feed the world.
Yeah, exactly. So like at the end of the game, you're still going to be mining, stuff like that. So, those ones will level slower than the crafting ones, and maybe we'll do some tweaks to that, but that's kind of the reason why there is some disparity if you've played the build.
Kappa had a few questions on nutrition. What's the best nutrition at the moment?
The best nutrition? I don't have a spreadsheet in front of me.
Yeah.
It can get pretty high though. We haven't changed anything about the skill gain from housing or food. Maybe we have. I don't know. It's been a while, so I'm not exactly sure, but it should be roughly the same. The maximum cap to your EXP multiplier will be about the same as your skill points per day.
Let's open up the skill tree while we're talking, just so people can get a look at that and we can kind of poke around in there. Good suggestion, thank you. Can't wait for the talent to dual wield pickaxes. Okay, we will keep that in the suggestion. It's a great idea. Let's see any other questions. I know we'll take some more questions later, but I know, Craig, you're going to get into what's coming in the future. What are your visions for the future of the skill tree?
So there's like kind of a lot of things that we want to work into the skill tree as we go forward. And obviously like what's coming out in 8.0 is kind of like the first iteration of this. And it's a pretty big change. Like even if a lot of like how you gained points is kind of the same, it's just like the new EXP gain and like the talents and all that sort of stuff is sort of in there. So right now a lot of the talents are pretty bare bones. Some of them don't even work properly right now. Obviously that should be fixed by 8, but moving forward we really want to expand on those, as well as like just the skill groupings in general. Like, I mean, we talked about this earlier, but we do want to make these professions sort of meaningful, right? Like if I'm a miner, I should get benefits, right? And this also sort of plays into the whole like hewing is like less relevant at the end of the game. Obviously you can still use it to like make housing objects and stuff, right? But like if I'm a max level hewer, it is sort of like sad that it becomes kind of irrelevant later on.
And so how are we addressing that?
So we don't have anything exact, right? And I'm not going to promise anything, but what we would want to do is sort of tie this in. So like if you are good at hewing, maybe you get some benefits for lumber. Like if you have multiple like specialties in the same tree, maybe you can gain overflow experience. So like say I take lumber and I'm still gain like some benefit for hewing logs into that lumber tree because they're all related, right? And we sort of want to sort of tie in the sort of obsolete skills into the newer ones, and I think the best way to do that is to sort of tie them in with the professions, and that's sort of something that we would like to look into. Obviously not going to be an 8, but as we move forward, that's something we're definitely going to consider. As far as expanding the talents go, these levels also might change. We might increase the number of levels. It's also a possibility of making it infinitely level. We've talked about something like that before. But as far as talents go, right now there's only 2 choices at every tier, and the tiers are only 3 and 6. Some of them are less interesting than others. The eventual goal would be to have it so that each specialty has something unique in them. Like, I'm not going to come up with anything on the spot right here, right? But like, you would want them to be unique. I don't want to have like, oh, my hewing talent is the same as my lumber talent. Like, that's not that interesting, right? You'd want to like see something unique at each level, and then hopefully expand it so that either there's more in the levels, because look how much space there is. We could put so much stuff in here, or like more options at the level to just give you more choices. Because we want, like, if you take mining and I take mining, as like these servers grow bigger, we really want like you to be slightly different from me. Like, maybe you were really good at mining through basalt, and I'm like, I love mining in deserts, and I like hitting sandstone or something like that. Just something to make these people unique. People like within the same profession, like slightly different, and to give that a choice and to make that the feeling of leveling up sort of like better.
And a few people might have missed it earlier. So how do you get stars, and what affects the rate at which you acquire them?
So as before, it's basically how the old skill points per day works. It's just your nutrition and your housing will kind of increase the rate at which you level up and gain stars, and also the rate at which you gain experience.
Anything else coming in the future, ideas that you're looking into?
As far as skills go, like mainly we have, I mean, obviously there's a ton of balancing to do. And as we move forward, I kind of talked about how there's some stuff locked and some stuff not. We really want to kind of figure out which way we want to go, essentially. Mm-hmm. So we have it kind of spread out right now, and we're going to see how that feels and how it works. And then we'll kind of push all of the trees in that direction. And I think it's kind of important as we go forward that, like, we make sure that there is stuff at every level. Like, even right now, in the ones that have unlocks, there's not enough stuff to, like, filter at each level. Mm-hmm. So, like, as we add content, we'll be able to, like, put it behind these different levels or, like, unlock it for everybody, stuff like that.
I feel like you kind of touched on this a bit, but are there any development plans in addressing late game in some professions losing relevance, carpenters and T2 lumber being largely out of date, or secondary food professions such as hunters losing income from lower demand?
So we sort of, it's kind of hard to say because really, like, it's really hard to keep hewn logs, like, super relevant later on. At least for wood in general, my main problem with wood right now is that like masonry goes from tier 1 to tier 4. Lumber, it caps the paper, or wood caps out at lumber. So we have a lot of stuff to add there, and that's not necessarily under the purview of skills specifically. It's just kind of like something that we need to put there. But yeah, so mostly we'd be like, at least from the skills side, we'd be looking at making those sort of obsolete skills still relevant somehow. And obviously, like, you could still use hewn logs. Maybe we'll add a talent or something at the end where it's like, oh, hewn logs can be, like, better tier or something. I don't know. We'll figure something out for sure. We do recognize that as a problem, as sort of these older skills falling out of relevance. And actually, before you could unlearn them, but with the new system, we're not actually going to let people unlearn skills, at least immediately. We might let you reset your, like, completely drop your skill, maybe a max level or something, but we're not sure yet, especially because of the massive benefit they give you immediately. We can't really let people just kind of like swap around their points all the time. Mm-hmm. But because stuff is more unlocked now, it should be less like bad for you to like pick a specialty that's not particularly useful to you right at that moment, because you can still do the other things. It's just maybe not as efficiently.
Satsuki says we need a way to burn elementary materials for arts and culture. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we'll add a burn pile.
Yeah, we'll get a burn pile in the game. That'd be pretty fun. Let's see. Make it so your stars in a skill increase experience gain in related skills by a certain percentage. That'd be a cool idea. Let's see. What about the research skill? How do you level this? Do you need to craft a lot of skill books, or the talent for more carry weight, max calories, and more use for fishing and paper milling?
Okay, well, that's like a lot of questions in one. So, let's see. The research skill doesn't exist anymore. There is a specialty, I guess it would be called self-improvement, that's what the old skill tree was called. Right now in the current build of the game, you can take it, but you can't level it. By a release, it's going to be a skill, especially that just everyone starts with. So everyone will have this specialty, and it's just going to level up by you leveling up other specialties. So it's like, it's just going to go up naturally sort of as you play, assuming you take a specialty and you actually invest in it. That's going to be the skill that covers basically everything that the self-improvement skill used to cover. So that's kind of where the status of that is. Paper, that has no use currently. There's no change in that. Obviously, it is one of the it is probably the most useless skill, except for maybe the final cooking tier. But that is something that we definitely want to incorporate into stuff. Definitely will have more importance, hopefully, in laws and stuff. I don't really have anything I can I'm not gonna promise anything, obviously, right. But we are planning to look at laws sometime soon, so maybe we'll incorporate that sort of in there.
We had a quick
You can also back your currency with paper, so maybe you guys should do that.
Right. Paper money.
Paper money.
We had a question about boats. Boats are not in 8.0. Still
They're not.
hoping for the future, or there'll be a future update. So, but not 8.0. But we've got a lot of really awesome stuff in 8.0. It's visually, it's dramatically different.
Oh yeah, it's
and
pretty
beautiful.
crazy.
I think you're really gonna like it. Have you thought about adding a mailbox system for leaving messages for offline players? I love it. That's a great idea. Very cool. It's very difficult to get a hold of people who aren't in the same time zones when you need them. Cool. Thank you, Bob. That's awesome. We'll put that on our suggestion.
Yeah, you could also message them. I know the chat system is often overlooked, but you can turn off the crafting notifications, and then it's easier to parse. You can see me cheating a bunch here, and you can message people. But yeah, we have talked about a sort of in-game mail system, and it would be kind of convenient. Yeah, you could also
and they point out that's a good use for paper.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
use a paper to make a message.
Paper,
all right.
money, paper.
It's a
messages.
it's a good idea.
Okay, cool. Let's see. It makes more sense to have the gathering specialties to be baseline, as you have to level them. As they said, you have to hit trees and break rocks, and it's slow, so it makes sense everyone has it.
So it seems it's possible they might end up baseline, but for now we're going to keep them as they are, mostly because we do want people to specialize in these things. Like, we want people to be like, oh, I mine, that's my job. And there are people who do like mining. I like mining personally when I play the game. And there are people who craft. And eventually you should have enough specialties where you can do both. It's not impossible. And I do think it's nice to have that niche for people who do. Because otherwise, if we took out a lot of the gathering professions, most of them would just be crafting professions, and not everyone wants to craft all the time. So
what do you think is the most specialties somebody could have by the end of the game?
Depends on your settings. So it as it is now, it scales almost exactly the same as it scaled before. So you'll gain specialties, and the specialties, the amount of experience required per level will increase as you gain more, and then at a certain point, it'll just be at like the maximum cost, and it'll just keep going over and over. So if you just played forever, you just keep gaining them at whatever rate that is. It should be it caps out. I guess it depends how many skill points you have, really. It's hard to estimate based on but if you had maximum everything, you had like maximum food, maximum housing, and at the very end of the game, you might get one every like 3 days or something.
Chewy says, what's to stop me from making 10,000 hewn logs and power leveling?
Nothing. In fact, that is what we want you to do.
Yeah, you can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah.
10,000 hewn logs. Although then you'd have to put the wood in, right? Because you don't get the experience unless you actually make the hewn logs. So you could start the thing for 10,000, but you won't get the experience until you actually put in the wood for that.
Mm-hmm. Or your friends put in the wood.
Yeah. Or your logging friend puts in the wood.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really, that's kind of honestly like.
Yeah. Nothing stopping you except your own ability to get the wood.
Yeah. Oh, and you don't have to complete the hewn logs, right? Like, as you saw, I was getting experience like as each one completed. So like, if I order like 4 of these boards and I put in enough for one board, I'll gain the experience for that one board. So you don't need to you could order like 10,000 and only complete like 100, and you'd get experience for that 100. Mm-hmm. Say like, I just got experience for just that one. You get them as it completes.
Magnus is curious what the talents are for farming.
For farming. So farming is a little bit weird because farming has the crafting ones currently. A lot of the weirder ones are in gathering. Gathering has some, I don't have gathering right now, but the gathering ones are mostly related to choosing between harvesting natural resources and harvesting planted resources. So if you're if you are a farmer, you might take gathering, and then you would take the ones that increase your gains from planted resources. And that would just help your farming yields. But maybe you're on like a small world, or you're like a hermit and you live next to a jungle, and you're like, oh, I want to just occasionally pick a couple of papayas. There's one that actually drastically increases the amount of resources you get from natural plants. So that could be an option.
And Ashley asks, will the chat system be updated? I rarely see if I get a DM in the current system. So as Craig was pointing out, you can turn off other notifications.
Yeah, you can turn off notifications, but I mean, Chat is something we would like to improve.
Yeah.
There's no changes for it coming in 8, but it's one of those things we look at. You can turn off these notifications if they bother you, and then if someone messages you, it will be the only thing that pops up.
Yeah, I know we would like to update it, and there's a good chance that we will in the future. And comments from you letting us know that you're having issues helps us prioritize that. So, no concrete plan right now, but it's something that we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about. Okay. I don't see. Let's see. Contract system with multiple boards. Can we get a synchronized option?
So you want to synchronize. So you want 2 boards and you want them to have the same contracts on both. I'm the wrong person to ask about contracts.
Yeah. We can.
Yeah.
John is working on contracts, so we'll be. I think 9.0 will have a lot more things about government and contracts.
Yeah.
Probably updates on there. So.
Yeah, I'm sure in the next stream we'll get one maybe in depth on laws or something. Maybe if people want that, I'm sure John would love to talk about that.
Cool. So it seems like most of the questions. Did want to mention that our friends Jeff Grubb over at Venture Beat has been streaming 8.0 with his community and the Waypoint community. They've been doing it pretty much nightly on Twitch, and it's been a lot of fun. There's about 70 or so people in the world, and
we're on there too.
Yeah, we're on there too. And so I think we've got about 3 or 4 different factions competing, working together, and it's been a lot of fun. So 8.0 releases on Feb 6, but you can get a preview of it now, and we're doing this all month long, so check it out. The Big Eco World is our
the Big
title.
Eco Game.
Oh, the Big Eco Game.
Yeah.
That's right. Big Eco Game. So, it's great to see everybody and great to see some people from the Big Eco Game. Hey, Jeff. Okay, one more question here. Is there
answer a bunch more?
Yeah. If there's more questions coming in, we'll answer them definitely.
Here, wait. Look, paper for scrolls. That's something we've talked about before. I think it's an interesting idea. So far, we've kind of wanted the information distribution to be theoretically free. It's not free, and that you can charge people for it because obviously knowledge is important. But we wanted to make it so it's possible. That's definitely something we thought about before.
Is there a plan to increase item quality based on crafter skill?
Yeah, actually, that's something I do actually want. We actually had a pretty long discussion once about sort of how we wanted to improve farming before, and we were like, we could make your crops be better. Right now, it theoretically improves yield, but what we want is there to be a really obvious way. Sometimes when you're harvesting a plant, you're like, "Ooh, I got 5," and you're like, "Oh, is that better? Is that the only way to know that is just by remembering how much you got before." And then we used to have it the bonus shown sometimes, but because it's a natural plant, it just grows. It's not always that easy to determine. So we thought what if you harvest it and it's a gigantic corn, right? That's kind of cool. So we have thought about that, and the main problem is right now our skill system or our crafting system is kind of limited in a way, right? If you have a different kind of corn, that means we need another recipe. So hopefully in the future we'll have a better system for that. We actually have a bunch of ideas for that. So perhaps soon, obviously not Nate, not that soon, but we'll sort of work towards that goal of having the ability to sort of introduce stuff like that. And that is definitely something that's on our radar and something that we would like to improve.
What about irrigation for farming crops?
Irrigation for farming crops. You can use what are they called? Aqueducts. You can use the aqueducts, and actually in 8.0 there's going to be water pumps and pipes, so you can pump water.
Let's do a fly around of the world. I know
there's nothing in this world.
But this is a 8.0 world, right? So it should
so you want to see
cool world.
The stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff. Okay, well,
some people have probably already seen the world gen in our last stream.
Yeah.
But
thing is, looking at things from the top sometimes a little bit deceiving. But yeah, so this is the grassland, and actually, I guess we can talk a little bit about the biomes now. You can ask me questions as well, but this
sure,
is
yeah.
so. I know people went over this before in the other stream, but it's kind of interesting. So let's see here. So yeah, so we're in a grassland right now, and ideally, like as we sort of move through more biomes updates, and sorry, we're moving a little bit away from skills. I know that was kind of like the topic originally, but as we sort of move forward with the development of the biomes, we really want to like make there be some sort of like exploration and progression through the environments. So the grasslands is kind of like I don't want to say easy, but I guess that's kind of what we're going with. It's like the easy zone. Right now, because of the way the tool tiers are, sandstone and shale are the two beginning ones. So there's like surface deposits of sandstone and stuff around that you can use for your early game stone. And then also there's the desert, which also has more sandstone. And in sandstone, there's iron. So that's kind of like your early on materials. Yeah, so this is kind of the desert. There's, cactuses.
Are we thinking of adding new specialties we haven't seen yet, like fishing, husbandry?
Yeah, for sure. That's like sort of as we move forward and we add more content, that's definitely something we're going to want to add. I think, like right now, fishing is combined with hunting. I definitely want to split those up, but the problem is right now fishing isn't super useful. So at the time, I just don't want to like split it up into two not particularly useful things, right? So now you just take one, you get both. But yeah, eventually we definitely want to split them into both. And then once we have like appropriate talents and uses for all those things, then we'll split them and they'll be their own independent thing. And then as we add other content, we might split or make new specialties. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we would love to have another like tier above wood, above lumber. So like that would probably introduce its own specialty. So let's see if we can find any redwood.
Oxley asks, in the hunter profession, is there anything that allows you to run through grass faster? I think that's a cool idea for
It is a cool idea for sure. So yeah, so we'll have like a lot of like the talent system in general is something we'd really love to explore, and stuff like that I think would really fall under the purview of the talents. We could also just have a skill that would do that. Like, yeah, for sure. And I think like one of the important things is that it is more annoying to move around the world now, like slightly, because of the way that you like slow down when you're in plants. But like that's sort of intentional because we want players to think like, oh, should I like pave over this jungle so that I can go through it easier, right? Because it's not just about like, oh, I can. Like, it should be difficult to go through a jungle.
Right. The real wilderness is hard to traverse through when there's no trail.
And so you can cut all your grass down, you can pave it all over, and you'll be able to navigate it easier. But it comes at a cost.
Yeah. I do like that idea for a hunter specialty, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe that could be a talent. So thanks for the great ideas.
And the other thing, so right now we're in a jungle, or rainforest, I guess we're calling it rainforest. And there's all these palm trees. So, but hopefully we have a plan to this new tree. It's really awesome looking. And so I'm not sure when that will get in, but it's going to look really cool.
Yeah, it's coming really soon. I guess we don't want to give it away yet. So we'll just tease that as cool as this looks, it's going to
look way cooler. It's going to look awesome.
Times more amazing.
And now we've said it's going to look better, so it has to look amazing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's about it for the talents. So it's been really great answering your questions, and thanks for chatting with us.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll see you out there, and make sure to check out the big eco game with Jeff Grubb, Waypoint, the VentureBeat community, streaming on Twitch tonight. All right, later, everybody.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in, guys.